Hello, everyone. Once again, hope you had a good experience so far. We now have Akanksha, Raviratan, Arvind, and Nikhil with us, who are the experts from Ernst& Young in terms of taxation. They will be talking about tax laws in India, including the GST impact on cross-border earnings and exports. This panel will be moderated by Nikhil, and we hope to have a very interesting discussion and interactive session. So feel free to type in your queries in the question answer section on your top right, and they will be happy to answer your queries. Over to you, Nikhil.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone is doing fine in these tough and challenging times. So, the agenda of our today's discussion is understanding taxation for cross-border digital transactions. So, what we have done is we have prepared set of questions which are relevant and applicable to each and every one of you. We have a short session of 30 minutes. We'll be devoting around 20-25 minutes for the questions which we have prepared, and the last 5-7 minutes we'll keep it for your question and answers. So feel free to ask any questions. You can punch in the questions in the Q&A option. So without wasting much of the time, I'll start with the first question. So the first question, which is, what are the Indian tax considerations that e-commerce small and medium businessmen should keep in mind while undertaking cross-border transactions?
Yeah, thank you, Nikhil. Good afternoon. This is Arvind here from Ernst& Young. And I think this question is very broad, I would say. And for the sake of simplicity, I'll just break it down into two parts. The first part will be income tax or direct taxes. And the second part could be the indirect taxes. Akanksha will take you through the indirect tax portion, but let me just try to address this question from an income tax perspective. From an income tax perspective, again, I would want to break it into two parts. One is on the income side, and the second is on the expense side. When you talk about the income side, so all the exporters or the SMBs that we call here will be receiving income from their overseas customers. Now, being residents or Indian residents for income tax purposes, the entire income that the exporters receive as sale proceeds is chargeable to tax in India in their hands. Of course, this will form part of the turnover, and you will be allowed certain expenses, after which the net income shall be liable to tax in your hands. Apart from this, in India, there have also been a lot of new changes around the e-commerce sector. One of such change is withholding tax on the e-commerce operators. So the new law says that starting 1st of October 2020, the e-commerce operator, be it in India or outside India, they are required to withhold 1% of the total consideration payable to the seller. Here, the seller are the exporters, of course, right? However, there is a bit of ambiguity as to whether the foreign e-commerce operators are required to comply with this law. But needless to say, even if they withhold this 1% withholding tax or TDS, that will be allowed as a credit or a set off against the final tax liability in your return of income. Now, this is on the income side. On the expense side, I think one important aspect that needs to be addressed is if at all any of the exporters or SMBs are making any payment towards advertising to an overseas party, India has introduced a new levy called an equalization levy. This was introduced last year, as per which any payment towards online advertisement to an overseas party is required withholding at the rate of 6% by the SMBs. So just to take a simple example, if $100 is remitted outside India to an overseas party and it is intended towards online advertising of the goods or products that is to be sold on a online platform, the payer, the Indian payer, is required to withhold 6% of equalization levy. Now, this is a new levy, and there have been a lot of questions and open aspects on this particular topic. However, since most of the exporters here or the SMBs intend to sell their goods or products on e-commerce platforms, any advertising payment made towards promoting those products outside India is liable to a withholding tax of 6%. So I think that is an important aspect that needs to be addressed if at all any such payment is made. On the expense side, just one last point is on the commission. There could be various expenses or commissions which are payable to the e-commerce operators or any other agent outside India. That is generally treated as an expense against the export proceeds. Typically, withholding tax is not applicable on that. And if at all there is any dispute or challenge raised by any income tax authority, I think that is defendable before any court of law. So if at all any of you have faced any challenges on the withholding tax aspect of commission payments or any other payments made abroad, I think they can reach out to us separately. However, we believe that if at all any such dispute is raised, it should be defendable before any court of law. So I've tried to cover, the income tax aspects of this broad question. Now I'll just pass on to Akanksha to touch upon the indirect tax aspect as well.
Thanks, Arvind. Hi, guys. A very good afternoon to all, and hope everyone is keeping safe and well. Uh, as you all know, that GST is around a 3.5 years old regime now in India, but still there are so many new changes and things which keep on getting introduced in GST. So, considering in mind that majority of us would be exporting goods or services outside India through e-commerce platform, so some of the points which we should keep in mind under GST is first on registration. Many of us feel that because there's a threshold limit provided under GST for goods being 40 lakhs, for services being 20 lakh per annum. So hence, even if we are doing an interstate transaction, that is export, a registration under GST may not be required. But this is not the case. Government has clearly clarified that in case of an interstate, cross-border transaction, such registration is mandatory. Also, secondly, since we will be supplying all these goods through e-commerce platform, all of us, we need to be mindful that we have availed a proper registration under the GST authorities. Now come to the point whether tax is payable under exports. No, there are no taxes payable under exports, but we need to ensure that for not paying any taxes, the relevant conditions as prescribed under the laws are fulfilled. So one of the details which you should be mindful of is to obtain letter of undertaking from your jurisdictional GST officers, which is just a small online form which you need to file it online, stating that you will be undertaking exports during the year and there are no offenses or cases pending against you. Once this form is filled, then you are eligible to do exports without charging any taxes from your customers. Nonetheless, another point which you have to keep in mind is that while raising any export invoices to your customers, whether for services or for goods, you have to ensure that a mandatory declaration that the supply is in relation to exports under the LUT which you have obtained from the government is clearly mentioned. The another aspect is that under the GST provisions, you have to file the monthly return or the quarterly return as applicable based on your turnover. For SSEs having turnover below 1.5 crore in a particular financial year, they can follow a quarterly return regime. But for any SSEs above that threshold, the monthly return filing is to be followed. The quarterly and the monthly option is only available for the output supply return, which is GSTR 1 known in government parlance under GST. For the monthly summary return, that is known as GSTR 3B, through which the taxes are being paid and the credit are being availed, that will still remain to be a monthly compliance for all of us. Another aspect under GST is that an exporter has been provided a facility by the government to claim refund of taxes paid on input services or goods which they have paid while procuring these services or goods in the course of rendering this export transaction. For example, if I am into a manufacturing of handicraft products and I have bought some raw material of a fabric or a cotton or something, so any taxes if been paid on these goods shall be available as refund to me. But yes, for availing this refund, since it is not a suo motu benefit available for the government, an application to that effect shall be required to be filed by the assessees. Now, moving on to the custom side of exports. While doing any export transaction, we'll have to ensure that we have the document, that shipping bill, port code handy with us, because these details are also required to be filed not only at the time of filing the returns, but also at the time of claiming any refunds if we need to claim any amount from the government. I just hope that I have covered most of the points. So over to you, Nikhil.
Yeah, thank you, Kansha. Thank you, Arvind. So moving to the next question. So what are the key Indian exchange control and FEMA regulations which are applicable to small and medium businessmen undertaking exports?
Yes. So Nikhil, I'll take this question. Thank you so much. Hi guys, I'm Raviratan Chauhan from Ernst & Young. FEMA, Foreign Exchange Management Act, is a very important act for undertaking exports, and it is very important that we comply with the provisions of the FEMA so as to not attract any penalties from the regulatory authorities, which is typically the RBI, Reserve Bank of India. For most of the compliances that are required to be undertaken in FEMA, they are routed through the AD Category 1 bank, which is typically the banker through which we are undertaking transactions, remitting funds, receiving our export proceeds, etc. Right. So one of the some of the key aspects which needs to be considered while taking an export transaction is the first and foremost is the realization of the export proceeds. Now, as per the exchange control regulations, it is important that any goods which we are exporting, the receipts for such goods are realized within a specified time frame. So typically the time frame is 9 months. However, due to present COVID scenario, there was an extension offered for exports which were done till 31st July. The time limit for realizing these proceeds was extended to 15 months. However, right now there is no further extension which has been announced by the RBI. So any exports that are being done after 31st July, the exporters are required to ensure that the proceeds are received within 9 months of the export. Another aspect that is important is that while exporting, if we are receiving any advances from the buyer of goods, then there is a specified time limit within which we have to basically repatriate. We have to export the goods, and that should be done within the period of 1 year from receipt of the advances. If we don't basically export the goods within 1 year, then there will be approvals that would be required from the relevant authorities. Third and important, the most important thing is that for any foreign remittance that we are receiving against our exports, we should always ensure that we are asking for a foreign inward remittance certificate from our bankers. Now, foreign inward remittance certificate is a very important document because it acts as a proof which can be submitted with various authorities while claiming benefits to show that we have actually received the consideration in foreign currency and hence we are eligible. So it is accepted by the GST authorities, by the income tax authorities as a proof of receipt of consideration in foreign currency. Right. Another important aspect of the business that could be considered in foreign under FEMA is that with respect to returns. So what happens is that if any goods have been sold and they need to be returned, then it is important that such goods are re-imported into India in a timely manner, and you report the same to your AD banker. and also if you have claimed any benefits or any schemes or exemptions on this particular export, then it is important that we surrender these benefits also to the authorities. So that needs to be considered. Uh, Also, is it possible to basically if you have shipped the goods with a particular buyer, say A, and basically it has been decided that the buyer is changing to buyer B, is it possible to do so? Yes, it is possible, right? However, the exporter needs to ensure that whatever the considerations are for the export are received within the period of uh, 9 months, and any reduction in the value of the export bill should not be more than 25% of the original invoice. So that needs to be considered. Also, when
Just
you are
one
paying,
additional point I wanted to add. Yeah, we go on, maybe towards the end.
yeah. So another important aspect that needs to be considered is that when you are making payment for your commissions, which you would be paying to your facilitator like Amazon or online portal, those particular commissions we can consider to set off against our export proceeds. However, it is important that complete set of documents should be maintained and submitted with the AD banker so as to ensure that we have received our export proceeds as per mentioned in the invoice. So we need to give the detailed breakup of the commission which is being charged by the for your freight or for your online portal, etc. Right. You want to come in?
Yeah, just one last point on the export considerations from an Indian Exchange Controller FEMA perspective. See, FEMA as such is a law which is in black and white, which means that there is no much scope for interpretation on some of these provisions. However, the RBI has given delegated authorities to the AD bankers who then take their own call so far as all these matters are concerned, including realization of export proceeds. So most of the times, we can reach out to the AD banker before we undertake any particular transaction, just to make sure that the treatment or the interpretation given by the AD banker is in line with the provisions of FEMA. So in other words, at a practical level, what we do and what we suggest is that even before we take any call, any position, so far as FEMA provisions are concerned, reach out to maybe one or two AD bankers just to pick their thoughts and go with the AD banker who can give you a simple and a practical solution. So that is the bottom line. I just wanted to highlight because many bankers may have different interpretations depending on the positions that they have taken for some of their clients, and there could be some bankers who may allow certain transactions, whereas the other bankers would want to take a more conservative approach. So that was the only additional point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Nikhil.
Thank you, Arun.
So,
Over to you, Nikhil.
we are moving to the next question, Akansha, for you. So lately there have been a lot of changes around invoicing provisions under GST. So can you let us know a few important changes which are relevant from exporters' point of view?
Thanks, Nikhil, for asking this question. I'm not sure that whether everyone has heard about the e-invoicing being introduced from 1st of October. But a good point about this is that currently it's being implemented only for those sellers who are above 500 crore of a turnover, whether in the current year or in the previous financial year. So anyone who is below this threshold limit is not need to worried about. One of the important aspects from invoicing perspective is that I have seen whenever any assessments or any audits have happened with the GST, a common mistake what people are doing is that they just mention their detail, and as a customer detail, we have been mentioning the Amazon or a Flipkart detail rather than mentioning the actual buyer's detail on their invoices. because every transaction is being taken care by our online vendors. So that's why the only detail we have is of the online vendor and not of actual customers. So we have to be mindful the actual customer for us is the person who is actually paying us for this goods or services. Hence, detail relating to that is duly mentioned on the invoices. Apart from that, some one or two critical points which I'll say which is required to be mentioned is a declaration, especially when you are making any exports, which talks about supplies made under LUT without payment of taxes under exports. So that going forward in any assessments or anything, there is no issue being faced from the authorities at the time of any scrutiny or a detail. And for any detail, there are around 20 to 50, 20 to 30 fields which are required to be mentioned on an invoice. I would just suggest that you guys can refer to Rule 46 under the GST rules for more details. And just ensure that those are basic details which are required to be there about your as a supplier, the customers, and about the goods or services which you're selling. Thanks, Nikhil. Over to you.
So, Akansha, I think we'll take one more question because of the paucity of time. So, just a quick last question. Can you please elaborate on the benefits available to exporters under GST regime before we open the Q&A session?
Yeah. So under GST, there are two kinds of an export type, which you can refund type, I should say, that you should be able to file. One with payment of taxes, that you pay taxes by utilizing your credit pool or in cash, and then claim refund of that, which definitely nobody would want to go, and I will also not suggest that. And another option is the favorite one of everyone, that we go and file refund of the taxes paid on our purchases side. So in the previous question, I took an example of the handicraft goods. So in that case, wherever I have paid taxes on my fabric or any other goods which I have purchased, I can claim refund by filing a refund application in RFD 01. And it's a simple form which needs to be filled in. But some of the pointers which I have seen that exporters fail to analyze while going for the refund is that, first of all, we have to ensure that whatever purchases we have shown, especially from the registered vendors, the registered vendors has disclosed these transactions in their report. Unless and until they haven't done that, the officer is definitely going to reject your refund claim relating to that. First thing. Second thing is that if you have paid any taxes on the capital goods, on this refund without payment of taxes option, you cannot claim any refund of taxes paid on capital. You can just use that credit to pay off your domestic liability if you have any. Another thing is that a proof of a valid export remittance, as Ravi and Arvind have been talking about FIRCs or FIRAs. These are the important documents for which, and the pioneer is pioneer in this, in providing these documents to the customers with its, having tie-ups with various banks on this account. So these documents are very, very important, which one should keep in mind while filing any refund claim with the officer.
Thank you, Akansha. I think we'll now open the Q&A session. So, Arvind and Ravi, first question is from Rahul Maurya, who asked, with regards to withholding tax, when we are selling in Amazon, Amazon deducts the advertising cost and remits us the balance. The export bill is made keeping in mind deduction of advertisement expenses. Is withholding tax applicable in such cases?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting question, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of confusion and eagerness to understand how this works. Let me take a very simple example of equalization levy on an online advertisement. So if Indian exporters are making payment to, for example, Google for an online advertising, and if the payment is made directly to Google US or Google Ireland, this is a classical case of equalization levy. However, when we are making payment to Amazon, or whenever Amazon deducts certain expenses, calling it advertisement expense or a listing fee or commission by whatever name called, uh, what we need to see is whether is it directly intended towards advertisement or not. So I'll give you a very simple example. In India, if you are listing certain products on Amazon India, what is deducted is commission. What is deducted is listing fee. It may not necessarily be called as advertisement. At a very high level, one needs to look at the agreement with Amazon US in this case to check, what is the nomenclature and language given there in the agreement as well as on the invoice, and whether at all, even though you call it as advertisement charges, but is it charges towards listing? Is it charges towards their commission that they deduct? In that case, we can take a position that equalization levy withholding tax is not applicable. However, if they are doing anything in addition than listing your product by way of online advertisement, by way of promoting your brand, then the Indian tax authorities will certainly would want to levy equalization levy on that. So again, I know the answer is not perfect, but it depends on the language of the agreement and the actual conduct on ground. But certainly, given that they are only deducting one kind of fee and they call it as advertising, a position can be taken that equalization levy should not be applicable on this payment or constructive payment made to Amazon US. I hope I've dealt with the question aptly. Nikhil, we can move to next.
Thank you, Arvind. The next question is from Ankur Mittal. He asks how a shipping bill can be filed in case of export of services and how to claim refund of input GST in that.
Thanks, Ankur, for asking the question. So in case of a service, there's no shipping bill that you need to file. So basically, there's no custom procedure which you need to follow in case of services. Custom procedures in relation to shipping bill and everything is only applicable in case of goods. So in case of an export of service, you only need to raise an invoice, and that's all about it. And obviously, you have to ensure that the payment is received in the prescribed time. That is within 12 months from the date of invoice in case of GST, that you receive the money for your services. And also you have to ensure that on invoicing basis, you are mentioning your details in the returns. In relation to the refund, I think I already answered during the Q&A round that there is a separate form, RFD01, wherein you have to file for the refund in case you are also engaged in domestic transactions. So the refund amount will be computed on a proportionate basis. There is a formula prescribed under Rule 89, read with Section 54, which you can refer, which simply says that total export turnover divided by the total turnover of an SSE should proportionate to that only. The refund should be available on the eligible input tax credit. Yeah, Nikhil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have one more question from Deepu Nair. He asks specifically, if you get your supplies from another country, add value, and then export to another country, and both your purchases and sales are in dollars, given exchange risk and conversion expenses, at what point are we better off setting up a subsidiary in another country? Also, what is the legality of this, and can EY help with this, and whom to contact in EY? Arvind, can you? I think we have less than a minute left, so.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just quickly try and answer this. So setting up a subsidiary in an overseas jurisdiction is not a very difficult task. I understand that there are business considerations or commercial considerations that have to drive this kind of a decision, and not just foreign currency loss or tax considerations. This is certainly doable. And since time is very, very limited, probably we can take this question offline. Prasanna can share our coordinates with you, and either you can reach out to us directly or through Prasanna, and we'll be happy to help. Prasanna, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think that was a very interesting discussion, and even I could jot down some of the insights you guys mentioned in terms of GST reduction in export bills and going live from 1st October. Definitely, I think we are open to more questions. So, audience can send their questions in this Q&A box or even the chat box we have. We have a Payoneer booth as well. So drop in your questions there and we'll get those questions answered by our experts in EY. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the event. Now we have gone live with the keynote sessions on the main stage. So hope you enjoy. And thank you, Arvind. Thank you, Raviratan. Thanks, Nikhil. And thank you, Akansha.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
I think we can log off then. Thanks, Prasanna.
Yeah. Thanks, Akansha.